What I'm about to tell you is about an event that never happened. I used to tell the people before when we get done it's one of these things that says, who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes or the government? I'm John Callahan. I was the division chief of the Accidents, Evaluations, and Investigation Division of the FAA in Washington for 6 years during the 1980s. In early January 1987, I received a call from the Air Traffic Quality Control Branch in the FAA's Alaskan region office. They were requesting guidance and what to tell the media who were overflowing their office. The media was requesting information about the UFO that chased the Japanese 747 across the Alaskan skies for some 31 minutes at flight level 310, 31,000 and 35,000 feet. Somehow the word got out. What UFOs? When did this take place? Why wasn't Washington headquarters informed? Hey, the guy says, who believes in UFOs? I just need to know what to tell the media to get them out of here. The answer was simple. Tell them it's under investigation. And then I said, wrap it all up. I want the disc, I want the tapes, I want everything you have over there, and I want it at the FAA's tech center tomorrow morning. That means he has to put it on the midnight flight, the red line, and it's a pain to get all that done. Japanese airline flight 1628 was a cargo jet with a pilot, co-pilot, and one crew member. They were just north of Anchorage. It was about 11 p.m., but that's the time is not really correct. It was closer to 5. When the pilot first reported the UFO, he described it as a huge ball with lights running around it. He said it was about 4 times bigger than the 747 he was riding. And remember, the 747 has an elevator. And he's looking out the window and he sees something that's 4 times the size of his aircraft. He said he saw it with his eyes, his lying eyes, he saw it. The co-pilot with him saw it, and the other crew member all saw it visually. Over the course of the next 31 minutes, the UFO jumped miles in a few seconds. The radar sweep at that antenna was like 10 seconds. So at one time he says it's over here at 12 o'clock and 8 miles, and when the antenna goes by, we see a target there. 10 seconds later, it is now behind him, 6, 7 miles behind him. So it's going from 8 miles out here to 6 or 7 miles back here, really in like 5 or 6 seconds, okay? After receiving the data from Alaska almost 2 months later after this happened, I briefed my boss, Harvey Safir, and the FAA administrator at the time was Admiral Engen, and the Admiral said to go to the tech center, find out what's happening, I want to know what's going on. Now, the FAA had developed a program that was capable of recreating the traffic on the controller's scope. We call it today a plan view display, PVD. I instructed the FAA specialist to synchronize the voice tapes with the radar data so we could hear everything the controller and the pilot said, and we could be looking at the scope at the same time. So it would be as if you were standing behind the controller watching what was going on. The printout and radar playback displayed primary targets in the vicinity of the 747. These target returns were displayed about the same time and place as the pilot advised viewing the UFO. And if we had the capability of showing you this, you would see it also. Of course, the CIA said you can't see it because it's not there. Now, both the radar and manual controller observed the primary target. The military controllers also viewed the primary target on their radar, and they identified it as a double primary, a very large primary. The pilot and crew viewed the target on their radar, and they were also able to see the huge UFO out there with their own eyes. Now, if this craft had been a Learjet or a military aircraft in today's air traffic operations, when the pilot looks out the window and sees somebody shooting across his nose or flying along with him, the first thing he does is call air traffic and say, hey, do you have traffic at my altitude? And the controller would panic, looks at the scope and says, no, we don't have any traffic at your altitude. Well, it's an unknown. The air traffic controller then says, we will track that guy until he lands. And we'll have flight standards meet him down there. We're going to write him up. We'll pull his ticket. We'll do whatever we have to do. But the pilot basically said, it's a UFO. Well, who believes in UFOs? And this is the kind of attitude that the air traffic had at the time. So when I went back to headquarters, I gave Admiral Engen a quick briefing and showed him the video. He set up a briefing with the President Reagan scientific staff, and he told me my function was to hand this operation off to those people. And those people ended up being the CIA, the President's group, a bunch of grunts that came to the meeting. The Admiral says, I want you to hand it off because the FAA does not control UFOs, and we want it out of our district. Now, I brought a copy of the videotape I made. I had bought a camera for Christmas just before this happened, and I took a videotape of it. When I got home, I showed it to my wife and my neighbors, and I made a copy of it. When I went to the briefing, we put on this video for the people there 2 or 3 times. So it takes, a half hour. So we'll talk about an hour and a half or so. They asked a bunch of questions, very intelligent questions. They wanted to know the speed of the antenna. They wanted to know the frequency of the antenna. They wanted to know the beam width of the antenna. They wanted to know the algorithm for the height finding equipment. And the people I brought up in the room were all headquarters technical engineers, hardware and software people, and they gave those answers like they were a high school math coach. A squared, B squared, C squared. They spit that stuff right out. It was really amazing to watch these guys work. When they got done, the CIA said to all the people there, this event never happened. We were never here. And you're all sworn to secrecy. We are confiscating all this data. And they did. They took everything that was in the room. In those days, when you printed out something from the computer, it printed out boxes and boxes and boxes of these printouts. You remember these from the days when we used to see it on TV? Boxes and boxes of this stuff. This is titled UFO Incident at Anchorage on 11/18/86. And it tells you what data is in here. So we could take a chart and we could reproduce everything that the controller's seen on a piece of paper. Well, they took all that data. A few days later, they brought in, or a few weeks later, I guess it was, they brought in the FAA's report of the event that never happened. I had them put it on a little table in my room in a corner, and I said, well, leave it there, and when the CIA wants the rest of the data, I'm sure they're going to come and get it. Not too long after that, they brought the voice tapes for the same incident, and we put that on top of that package, waiting for the CIA to come and get it. Now, when I was at the tech center, I had the software engineers and the hardware engineers put together a chart that would show every target along the route of flight. And what they did is they commented on it. This is when we first saw the UFO. This is when the pilot saw the UFO. This is when the military guy saw the UFO, all the way down here. There's 2 of these. It's ripped off here a little bit because it ended up in my barn for a couple of years, and I didn't know it was in the box. And the mice were eating it. When I get done with this briefing, now we're talking to the engineers that build the air traffic control system, hardware and software. When they got done hanging this up on the wall, I said, tell me what those dots are. What is it? The hardware engineers got up and said, this problem over here, that's a software problem. And this one over here, software problem. Every time, all the way down, it's a software problem. There's nothing wrong with our hardware system. So I said, fine. It makes sense to me. So the software guy gets up, and he says, this target over here, that's a hardware problem. And this one here, a hardware problem. There was no software problems. And there was no hardware problems. Well, what do we have? If we don't have anything, do we have a target there or not? Well, one man got up and said, my religion forbids me to believe in UFOs. So I said, fine. I gave the briefing. They carried all the stuff. They took it out. This stuff stayed in my office for 2 years. When I left, one of the specialists came in a hurry to get me out. They packed up everything that was hanging there, all the stuff on the walls, and they put it in boxes and shipped it to my house. Today, I like to say that most people working as FAA controllers, they're not really familiar with how the FAA system works. They don't know why aircraft traveling through our airspace is not displayed under scope. They don't know why. I do, but they don't. The system today in the organization of the FAA is not configured to identify and track these type of performances. That's the end of my speech. Who are you going to believe? Your lying eyes or the government?